my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is a very special episode of the hottest Golden Age comics of the week. I'm actually going to look at 2024 in review. It was a pretty big year. Some big sales, some very bad sales. So I'm going to show you some of the top 5 steals of the year and some of the biggest sales of the year. So I'll kind of split it up into top fives, all in this one video. But I kind of wanted to quickly, summarize my impression of 2024 in terms of being a collector, in terms of also for those people who did sell books during 2024. I mean, it was a harsh year. I'm only going to speak towards this golden age on this. So it was a year that was a little interesting because I think what was happening a lot was there was a lot of books that were coming to market that you never see. Um, Books that generally you see maybe once every 10 years kind of level. And I think what it was is people were hurting this year. This was not a strong year in terms of the overall economy. And people were bringing big books to market in order to generate some money. So I saw a lot of big books coming to market that I normally don't see. You get the standard ones as well, the ones that you always see, but there was a lot of big books that normally you don't see. And I think a few books didn't perform the way people expected. And we'll see that in some of the in some of the sales that I'm going to talk about. But it was still actually, even though, as I said, the overall economy was weak, I still saw records consistently. Whenever I do my top 10 things, so I mean, we're looking at maybe 500 books that I've looked at over the course of a year. So 500 books. The market is much bigger than that, right? But it's a sampling that really does give you a kind of a glimpse into how the market is performing. And from what I could see from that glimpse is that the overall market is strong still. There were steals and there were targets of opportunity, but for the most part, books were setting new records. And this could be due to the fact that, as I was saying, that these are books that you don't see that often. So, when a book you haven't seen for 10 years sets a new record, it's not really a big deal because, well, the previous prices from 10 years ago, even inflation would mean that book should be worth more. But these books, from what I saw, were going beyond just inflationary amounts. They weren't just, setting new records based on that duration. The overall market was relatively strong. Now, that is different from some of the other markets where I saw Silver Age and Bronze Age and other ages really just finding the floor, really trying to find out where they could settle at. And 24 was really all about that, finding the floor for most of the different ages. And actually, even in that, I saw a pretty positive experience where a lot of the books that were selling for the floor were actually, the new floor, I should say, were actually still above the pre-COVID prices. Now, some actually crashed right through the floor and they're digging under the floor right now. But for the most part, I saw most books kind of setting new trend and going back to the overall trend line. So pretty positive overall. So 2024 was a bit of a mixed year for that. And I want to get into some of the steals that are in here. I kind of gave a bit of a price range. This price range is from $100 steals of the week to $500,000. So it's a bit of a range. But I wanted to show you that if you're interested in Golden Age, that there are opportunities out there. And these are all cool books. So that $100 one was a cool book. I'll get right into it. So the first number 5 on my steals of the year was Howdy Doody number 1. This was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $110. Now that was a major steal because this book generally sells for around $300. The previous record for it was $330 back in February of 2023. So last year, that's what it would sell for. So this was just a steal. Somebody got a steal on a cool book. It's Howdy Doody #1. Howdy Doody was kind of an icon of the 50s, and this is his first appearance. It was a cool book. So that's number 5. Number 4 was Guns Against Gangsters #6. This is a book that I actually own. Not this copy, but it's an LB Cole cover, classic. Got good girl, big shark whale thing. I don't know what it is. It's a big thing. Just a really cool shark girl cover. This was a 9. It was a 9.2 pedigree that sold, a Promise collection, and it sold for $6,900. That's insane because even Blue Labels sell for $14,000. So the last 4 Blue Labels sold for $14,400 in September of 2023. So that was half what the Blue Label had sold for. And generally, pedigrees sell for about anywhere from 20 to 50, maybe even double. Promise collection usually double what the Blue Labels sell for. So that was a major steal. But it just shows you that there were some big steals out there. And that's a cool book too. I have no idea why it sold for so cheap. Then there was 4-color 386, which is Scrooge #1, kind of a major book for Scrooge, Uncle Scrooge collectors. And it was a 9.2 that sold. And it sold for $4,000 this year. Now, the previous record for that book was set back in August of 2017 for $13,145. So it was down a third of what it had sold for. This, it doesn't even make sense. That's not COVID even related. So this is prior to COVID. It had sold for 3 times more. There were some pretty big steals out there. When you hear these numbers, you think, oh my goodness, the market is dying. But these were the lucky steals. You don't always get this kind of situation. The next one, though, oh my goodness, I wish I had seen this one. It's insane. It was a Batman #1, low grade. I think it was like a 1.5 that sold for $25,000. And it was actually a signed copy. It was a signed copy, sold for $25,000. Now, the previous record for this book, for this Batman 1, was set back in May of 2022 for $103,000. So it sold for a fourth of what the prior record was. I think that it was mislisted. I don't know what happened. It was just one of these weird sales that seemed very questionable. I don't know. When I reported on it in the first place, I was like, this doesn't seem right. There's something weird about this, but it sold for $25,000. Just an outlier sale. The biggest drop in terms of just overall amount of money lost was #1 on the list. A Superman #1 and a 5.0 sold for $500,000. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but the previous record for the book was set back in May of 2022 for $720,000. So it had lost $200,000. Now, actually, that sounds bad, but in 2023, I actually reported on a Superman 1 losing $1 million in value. So it's not that bad, I guess. It's all relative, right? So it was just not a good year for some of these big books. So I thought those were interesting. Now, let's get into the biggest sales of the year. There was a Detective Comics #31 that sold for, a restored 4.0, an extensive restoration, actually. It was moderate restoration. And it's, so 4.0, moderate restoration, amateur restoration for $48,000. Now that is a big sale because the prior record for a restored copy in that grade was $15,000 set back in 2012. So, sure, it's 10 years ago, but 3 times? That's a pretty big sale. So, some big sales here. Number 4 on the list for the biggest sales was Adventure Comics number 40. This is a great Sandman cover, the classic Sandman cover. Considered it is his first full appearance on the cover. It used to be considered his first appearance in comics, but then it was discovered that actually it was my friend Stephen Gettner who discovered that New York World's Fair number 30, 1939 was the first appearance of the Sandman character. So this one, though, was always considered the first appearance until my friend Stephen debunked it. But still, very desired book. It was a 5.0 that sold this year for $49,200. And that was a major sale because the prior record was set back in 2017 for $16,422. So almost up about 3 times from the prior record. Just a really strong sale, very desired book. I guess people didn't get the memo that it's not the first appearance, but it's a very desired book. It's just a very cool cover. Number 3 biggest sales was All Story. This is a pulp. And it's the very first appearance of Tarzan in comics. Or not in comics, but in written format. It was a sale for a VG copy, so a raw VG copy. So I'm not sure why they didn't get this one graded, but it was a VG copy. I think All Story is a bit bigger format. I don't know. I'm not sure why it wasn't graded. But it sold for $264,000. Massive sale for such a big book. Is probably the most expensive pulp out there. Now, this was the only sale for this grade. There was actually a 1.5 that sold, though, back in April 2022 for $48,000. So this is, a pretty strong sale, even compared to what you would expect it to go for. You'd expect, based on the grade, probably to sell for around $100,000, maybe $150,000, but this is like $264,000. Massive sale. Very key book, though. It is, as I said, probably the most desired pulp out there. Number 2 on the list for top sales was Black Cat Mystery number 50. Now, this was actually not the comic, but the original art for the cover for Black Cat Mystery number 50. If you're not familiar with Black Cat 50 number 50, it is the one where he's eating the uranium. It's like you got the uranium and the guy's face is melting. Very cool Lee Elias cover, just very desired cover. Well, the original art for that set a massive record for original art. It's sold for $840,000. Now it is a classic cover, but that is a massive sale. Another classic cover is the one above me right there, Chamber of Chills 19. Well, when that cover sold back in April 2022, it sold for $174,000. Actually, was it 2022 or 2023? It was in that era. So this is like 4 times what another classic cover had sold for. So really big sale. Big sale for this book, for this cover. So original art kind of showing some strength in 2024. And how about the biggest book of all comics? How did it do? So there was actually a sale for an Action 1. That's the biggest book in comics. The book that is the most valuable, most desired comic of all. Sort of the bellwether of all bellwethers, because it's Action 1. It's the big book. Well, there was a sale this year for $6 million for an Action 1. The prior record for the Action 1 was set back in 2018 for $2 million. So it's up 3 times. in that time period. So some strength, some strength in the market. Just shows you like somebody's willing to spend $6 million on a comic. There's some strength in the market. So you know, it was an interesting year. As I said, there was a lot of opportunities, a lot of new books that you just, or a lot of books that you just don't normally see. And there was deals to be had. I found that if you were willing to kind of search around, you could find some really cool deals, like on Instagram or even on eBay. A lot of the opportunities that I saw were things where you could reach out to reach out to sellers. If a book sort of was sitting on eBay for a while, you could reach out to them and say, "Hey, look, would you accept this kind of offer?" And sometimes they would accept it. I think if you're a comic book dealer, this is probably the worst time to be selling. If you have the money, sit on the books, because I think the market will recover even stronger next year. But this is kind of one of those transitional years, I would say, where 2023 was just a train wreck. 2024 was, it was a little, the train was maybe slightly on the rails, but I think the train will get moving next year. So definitely an interesting year. I hope you liked my summary of the year. I hope you thought these sales were interesting. Give me your feedback in the comments below, and bye for now.